Hey everyone, this is Fabio, and welcome back to a new video, or rather to a sort of solo podcast, though I guess vlog would be more correct. I'm currently stuck in Italy due to the UK being in full lockdown, so I cannot go back to London anytime soon. It is what it is, quite annoying, though being here has been great, especially from a gaming perspective, I have to say, because being here gave me the opportunity to play some of my home consoles, the PS4 in premise. I finished the great and greatly enjoyed Tales of Zestiria, devoured the absolutely fantastic 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, highly recommended, and then I moved to the PS3 in order to play Valkyria Chronicles. However, I put it down after only one day, not because I wasn't enjoying it, quite the contrary actually, but because I got the input to play something else instead, and that was Bloodborne. The point of this vlog podcast, call it what you want, is to share my feelings after experiencing the Souls series for the very first time. That's right, I've never touched one of these games, not by choice. I've been very curious about them, especially since the release of Bloodborne, for reasons I will cover later, but rather because of lack of occasions until recently. Several years ago, I bought a copy of Dark Souls on PS3, the Prepare to Die edition, whatever that is, but never touched it because I always gave precedence to other games and thought it's not going anywhere. I'll play it eventually, which is something I do pretty often. Cough, Persona 4 Golden cough. Another element that has made me quite curious about the Souls series is its impact. These games and their formula have taken the gaming world by storm, and it is arguably that they are some of the most influential games of the last decade or so. Finally, another element that I find very intriguing about them is how divisive they are within the gaming community. People who love them really love them and are ready to die for them. It's their mission from God to sing the praise of the Soul series. On the other hand, people who don't like them really hate them. There's no middle ground with these games. Meanwhile, I've been watching all of this from the side, but I've waited enough, so I decided it was time to finally try these damn games in order to properly understand both the praise and the criticism and see where I stand. But that's enough of this. Let's talk about my experience with Bloodborne. And for this reason, I thought more appropriate to have the game in the background doing the talking. Uh, this is based mostly of my second day playing the game, so I'll probably suck, but at least you have something to watch and this will not be too boring for you. Obviously, it goes without saying that all the comments on the game I will make are entirely based on my personal experience. I might be wrong, or you might disagree with me, and but that's totally fine. So here we go. So, what's the genesis of all of this? Why did I get the urge to play Bloodborne of all things? I mean, I was playing Valkyria Chronicles on PS3 the previous day and really enjoying it, but then I put it down in favor of Bloodborne, and that's quite the departure. It's not that this was completely a new experience. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I mean, we all know about these games by now. Personally, I've started to become aware of them by the time the first Dark Souls was around. Um, while on the other hand, thinking about it, I didn't know anything about Demon Souls when it was new back in 2009. And to my understanding, back then this game was rather niche, although things have changed, of course, in the meanwhile. Um, so, but of course, at the same time, I know plenty of people who are big fans of the series. Most of my friends within the YouTube community, for example. What really triggered me to try Bloodborne, however, was a sort of podcast by Up Up Down Down, of all things. Uh, they are discussing their top games of 2020 when suddenly Adam Cole start gushing about Demon Souls Remaster on PS5. Then what you have is what I would describe as your typical discussion on the Souls series. You have the fanatic who can stop praising how awesome these games are. You have the critics who can or just complain about the frustrating and brutal difficulty. And then you have the fourth one who has no idea what they're talking about because he has never experienced any of these games, just like me. But then something interesting happened. The fourth one was sort of challenged, or rather invited, to try one of these games, and ultimately the choice ended up being Bloodborne. And that was the spark. While I've never played any of these games, I've always thought that if there was going to be a Souls game that I want to play in order to try to get into the series, it would have been Bloodborne. The reason is very simple, and it's the first element I want to highlight: the setting. While Dark Souls' dark fantasy setting looks cool, when I saw Bloodborne's gothic Lovecraftian setting for the first time, way before I played the game, I was sold. It looked so much cooler and different and interesting. And now that I've started to play the game, I can get enough of Yarnum. I want to explore this dark, twisted city, to know more about it. And recently, I finished a section within the dark old city, which in a way was even better. While it's similar, it feels even more dangerous and crazier, with those burning crosses everywhere, a more unchecked nature, derelict architecture, and things like this. In a way, I hope that the whole game will take place within Yarnum. However, I'm ready to be surprised, and I'm ready to discover and explore new location within this world. Ultimately, I believe that setting is such an important yet at time overlooked element within video gaming. Sometimes it might even be a game's best element or best character. For example, the Bionis and Mechonis in Xenoblade Chronicles, one of the best settings for an RPG ever, or Rapture in Bioshock, by far the best thing about that game. And let's move on and let's talk about what might be the biggest controversial element. And I guess what you want me to address, presumptively, I might add, the difficulty. It goes without saying that this game is very hard and challenging, but we all know that. It's a Souls game. Brutal difficulty is their branding, it's what they're famous and known for. But what are my feelings of said difficulty? Honestly, I'm greatly enjoying it. While it's a very challenging game, I'm not experiencing the frustration that a lot of people are complaining about. Quite the contrary, actually. To me, in fact, the game is rather fair in its difficulty. Call me crazy, but the challenge doesn't feel artificial due to bad gaming design, such as unresponsive controllers, shitty camera angles, no continues, random difficulty spikes, etc. Most of the time, actually, I'm dying because of my own mistakes. While the enemies are tough, I've noticed that they are very pattern heavy. So maybe you'll die the first time or the second time, but eventually you'll know what to do in order to overcome the challenge, which is something very rewarding and very old school if you think about it. Also, speaking of fair difficulty, I like how the game offers you a chance to recover your blood echoes after you die. You only have one chance, yeah, and if you die again, they're gone. But I love the little tension there, and again, the sense of reward once you manage to recover them. And speaking of difficulty, here's the mother of all questions, the source of endless debate. Should this game and the rest of the Souls series have an easy mode? Now that I have experienced almost 20 hours of Bloodborne, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard it's actually even harder than Dark Souls, I'm going to say no. I don't really see the point on a easy mode in a game like this. You can argue that an easy mode would make it more accessible, though I think it's rather debatable as a statement, but that's another topic. However, that would be defeating the purpose of the whole experience. A game like Bloodborne can be very punishing, but at the same time, it's one of the most rewarding games I've experienced in a long time. Also, it's not that these are the first hard games that I've experienced. Games on the NES already were notoriously difficult and punishing in a different way, but try to play the first Mega Man or Castlevania or the Ninja Gaiden trilogy. These were brutally difficult games, and yet there was no drama surrounding them, not that I can remember. But obviously, those were different times. However, Dark Souls and Demon Souls before it, and Bloodborne, Sekiro, the whole thing, has shocked the gaming world with its difficulty. Or maybe it's even different. I remember hearing a lot of people complaining that gaming in general has become easier, or there was a perception, at least, that games were easier than they used to be, and then all of a sudden, From Software dropped the Souls bomb and reminded gamers that games could be hard as well. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. Just like I'm not sure where the controversy really lies between fans and critics of these games, since I haven't touched them upon up until now. Maybe it might involve some sort of elitist bullshit like, oh, if you don't play the Souls game, you're not a real gamer. Or if you don't play your games on stupid hard, you're not a real gamer, you filthy casual. Which obviously it's nonsense, but unfortunately it's something that might happen in today's gaming landscape. Overall, it's just a matter of this game not being for everyone, and what a shocker, that's okay. Just like, for example, JRPGs are my favorite games, and they're not for everyone as well, and I'm okay with that. What is fascinating to me is the dichotomy created by the Souls series, how polarizing they are and how they push the difficulty discussion so much in the forefront when to me it's not necessary. Hard games have always been a thing, and a game by definition, it's not for everyone, no matter the genre. So I don't really see the point of all the drama. So let's move away from this tangent and get back to the game and some more highlights. Let's talk about combat, and oh, there's a lot to say there, since I love fighting in Bloodborne. Perhaps I'm a bit too aggressive at times, but I can't help it. I'm constantly looking forward to the next challenge, especially those tougher enemies. Most likely I'm going to die several times, but the anticipation, the rush of adrenaline, the sense of reward are all elements that combine and make for a great combat, even if it's slower and more methodical than your average action RPG like Tails or Ease, for example. And I love all of them, regardless of the difference. A good example would be the beginning of the game. You wake up in the clinic, and after 5 seconds, you encounter your first enemy, that big werewolf, and you are unharmed. That's genius. Chances are that you're going to die very quickly because your attacks are basically insignificant. They do very little damage while the enemy can kill you in 2 seconds. Now, I can say that you are supposed to die because that introduced the hunter's dream where you can pick up your weapon, which will change everything, of course. The best part, however, is that for me, like, I didn't get that because I was clueless, so I kept respawning and kept fighting the werewolf with my bare hands. So it made my life even harder. I died many times, but in the end, I managed to kill that thing without weapons and thought, wow, that was hard. What a start. Then I encountered another enemy, and another one, and another one. I kept killing them without any weapons while thinking, when the hell am I going to get a weapon? How am I supposed to do this? Eventually, of course, I died again, because once you start facing two or more of those huntsmen, you are screwed without weapons. And then I finally understand how to get a weapon. Finally, I got my trusty saw cleaver and started to mow down everyone on my path until I got stomped by the first minion you encounter, the one behind those big doors after the huge werewolf is on fire on a cross. Uh, and so the cycle continues. Thinking about it though, the first hour of Bloodborne proved to be a massive learning experience that not only made me ready for what I was getting into, but after that first hour, even though I made the game harder for myself, at the same time I was thinking, I'm loving this. I'm here for the long run. But speaking of combat, boss battles are obviously one of the greatest highlights of the whole game. If you're thinking that simply charging them and mashing buttons like in other action games will be enough, then the game will stomp you. You have to be strategic, you have to think what you're doing. Personally, I get into the zone during this battle. I get so focused and very much into a zen zone. I learn from my mistake. I adapt and think about new strategy while you can feel the adrenaline rushing through my body. The battle against Father Gascoigne, for example, was fantastic. Not only I had to pay attention to him and learn his patterns, but at the same time, I had to consider my surroundings, since in that graveyard, all the tombstones are really in the way for you to dodge or move around. So that played an important part in the battle and in my strategy. I died multiple times, it goes without saying, but each time I learned something more and got better until I was able to defeat him. And once that happened, the sense of accomplishment and reward you're given after beating this tough, challenging boss is incredible. So far, I would say that the hardest one I've encountered has been the Bloodstarved Beast in the Old City. I died so many times with that, primarily because I was I found its super speed very, very difficult to counter. But like I said, eventually I managed to do it. And all of this kind of goes into the next point I want to highlight. This game is addictive. It's really hard to put it down. That feeling of pushing just a little bit further is always there. I'm constantly thinking, one more time, just one more time, let me try this. Perhaps I should do this instead of that. Maybe this is going to work. And when it does, it's incredible. The sense of reward I'm feeling when successfully overcome a challenge is exhilarating and adds to the overall addition. And this is connected with the only complaint I have with the game so far. Every time you die, you have to see that Bloodborne screen, and you're going to see it a lot before you can continue. That's the only thing so far that annoys me about the game. It takes too long, but simply because I want to get back into the game immediately. Very minor nitpicking, I know, but it's all I could think about. And finally, there's one more thing I want to bring up, which can be very interesting: the apparent absence of a story. As you know, the storytelling element within a game is my favorite element and the main reason why I play video games and why RPGs are my favorite games, because they're story driven experiences. However, in Bloodborne, it doesn't seem there's a story in the forefront, at least, like in other JRPGs. So you might think this might be the most obvious complaint from me. You'd be wrong though, because I'm okay with Bloodborne's narrative, or apparent lack of one. It seems to lack your typical structured plot elements and such as beginning, middle, end, characters development, story arc, etc. And it's not even like Western RPGs with their choose your own adventure approach. Bloodborne, on the other hand, relies heavily on lore, which offers you bits and pieces here and there, and then you get to piece all of it together and interpret it, which is something I'm less familiar with. Thus, I find it very intriguing because I'm aware there are different approaches to storytelling and different narrative techniques, and I'm well open about them. Even more than open, you can say, because I'm less familiar with it. It's not the same formula over and over. Even though I'm absolutely okay with traditional storytelling, to experience something different at times, it's always a good thing. So let's wrap this up. It's pretty obvious that so far Bloodborne has been a fantastic experience, and I can't wait to continue through this journey. But what's next for me? I think it might be a bit too early to declare myself a Souls fan because I only experienced one game after all. Though I believe I'm getting there, not only because I'm enjoying Bloodborne so much, but because I really want to play more of these games in the future, since I got a lot of catching up to do. Just to be on the safe side, I already bought Dark Souls on Switch, even though I said I already own a copy on PS3, but realistically, it would be more practical to me to experience this game on the go. A good way to briefly sum my experience up with Bloodborne would be so far so good, or rather, very good. I'm loving the combat and the challenge. The lore and setting are fantastic, and most importantly, I can put the game down. So, mission accomplished, I guess. I can say with confidence that I'm a big Bloodborne's fan and very curious to see how it will translate whenever I'll move to Dark Souls proper. The floodgates have been opened, the Kraken has been released. These are my thoughts on Bloodborne and my very first experience with the Souls series. Definitely, let me know what you think about these games. Are you a fan or a critic? Let's have a nice discussion in the comment sections. But thank you so much, guys, for watching, though listening would be more appropriate. And like always, take care.